I first was introduced to Rory through the usual route, which is, mates, friends in school who would talk about their favourite band, and this would have been North County Dublin in like the mid-70s. So the bands that everyone were excited about then were Thin Lizzy and Rory Gallagher. And we'd go back to our various houses and listen to records, and my neighbour had quite a few Rory Gallagher records, and I'd bring over maybe a Beatles record or something. We'd just have a session listening back to things, and at that point I wasn't really even playing myself. I had a guitar, but I'm not sure I learned how to tune it at that point. But it was just a given, everyone loved Rory because he just signified something so important for kids of my era, which was, the Irish guitar player who was up there on the international stage, up there with all the greats. And so there was a great sense of pride in his achievements. And I think then the next time I really took an interest beyond that was when he played his first show in Macroom, which would have been 1978, maybe 77. I have to check the exact date. But myself and my brother and our friend next door decided we'd go down to the Macroom show. I think I was 15 at the time, and we got a kind of package ticket, which was a coach trip down the show and then a coach trip back. It was the first time I ever went to what you might call a big gig. I've been to a few small shows, but that was the first ever big gig. I remember the first edition of Hot Press was being given away. It was the first edition, so we were just trying to get it out there. And a very auspicious day out, I have to say, all around. And obviously, Rory was astonishing. It was one of those great concerts, and it was during, I think, probably the heyday of his band as well. All the best musicians were playing that day with him. So that was really it. From then I was hooked, and as I started learning how to play guitar myself, I suppose some of the first songs I would ever try and work out would have been Rory songs, and he was certainly early on. If you ever hear our first demo, there's quite a bit of influence there evident in my own style. I think Rory was an extraordinary thing in the 70s in Ireland because music was this kind of unobtainable thing that was going on abroad. You never really thought about rock and roll as being an Irish thing. Sure, there were the loads of traditional Irish shows you could go to, and Andy Irvine and Christie were on TV, and that was much more tangible. But rock and roll in those days was this very exotic, slightly dangerous thing that was going on abroad. So to have Rory Gallagher on the international stage meant an incredible amount, and it certainly paved the way, I think, for a lot of young groups. Certainly in my case, the two things that I would point to would be punk rock, because of its suddenly all barriers were taken away, and Rory Gallagher, because he had basically done the impossible, come out of Ireland and gone all the way, played on the same stage at the Isle of Wight with Jimi Hendrix, and taken most of the world by storm. So he really did, in many ways, show everyone what was possible. I discovered taste through another friend of my brother's who sold us a bunch of records, and I came across this album, and I didn't know it was Rory. It was quite an interesting cover, and it was a live album of Taste, and I put it on, and I just thought it was amazing. And it took me a while to put it together. That was the same guy that was Rory Gallagher. But they were really a power trio almost before the whole kind of power trio thing became a big big international thing with the Jimi Hendrix trio and Cream and all that. And you know, he was up there. He was like, that band were about as good as it gets in that form. And you know, it's kind of a shame that it didn't last a bit longer, because you know, like so many times in Rory's career, you could have said that was the moment where if he'd really gone for it, he could have broken America in a much bigger way. But I really think Taste were really amazing, really ahead of their time, and probably didn't get the recognition that they deserve. I always thought that Rory, though the blues was his chosen form, there was a kind of lyricism to his playing which was quite his own. I don't think any other player really had his particular approach and phrasing. And whilst I don't think he ever would have thought about it as being anything Irish, I picked up quite a lot of the Irish influence in his particular version of the blues. And as a young guitar player, I just found I was drawn to the way he played, his phrasing. I found it fascinating. I found it also accessible. You know, as much as I would sit in my bedroom for hours trying to figure out what he was doing, there was always a kind of, it wasn't showy. It was just had a beautiful kind of elegance to it, and there was never too many notes, or you know, there was just the right amount to get the message across.